What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom at 7:01. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Let's get the party started. Red meat is not a health risk. A new study slams years of shoddy research on red meat. We'll talk about all of that at the top of the show today. Then at 7:18 this morning, we found out why Donald Trump can't use Twitter. And, the results make perfect sense. We'll talk about that at 7:18. At 7:35 this morning, Patrick Carroll will be joining us on the program for his very first interview on the show. He's also a writer at the Foundation for Economic Education, like our buddy John Miltimore, who wrote an article asking the question, are libertarians house cats? At 7:51 this morning, what do you call your in-laws? I know it seems like a strange question, but I mean, you call your in-laws what you call your in-laws, but different people have different rules and protocol for what you call your in-laws. And since you're going to be meeting and seeing some of them this week in Thanksgiving, maybe it's time to revisit why we call our in-laws what we call them. At 8 o'clock this morning, Camelia Peterson joins us, and we are not related. We're going to talk to her about a disturbing campaign from Balenciaga that sparked outrage online. I won't even show the photographs or anything like that because, well, now that we're monetized on YouTube, I actually have an incentive to be a little bit more careful, even though we're not on the radio. Advertisers, they control everything. At 8:23 this morning, Squiggly, everybody's favorite Squiggly line guy, will be joining us on camera to talk about why that conspiracy theorist radio host, you know who he is not going to be allowed back on Twitter. Everybody else is back on Twitter. Donald Trump's back on Twitter. Why can't that guy be back on Twitter? Shall not say his name. And then at 8:35 this morning, if you missed my interview with Gabby Hoffman yesterday, I'll play that for you. We've got a great show for you today. All right, I know it's funny that I should be talking like nice things about red meat this morning because I actually got food poisoning last night. My beautiful wife and I went out for drinks with some friends, and I sat down and I had some food, and well, I think I probably would have been just fine if I had just drank alcohol, but because of the food, whatever it was that I ate that got me last night. Oof, not so good, not so good. But it is Thanksgiving, so I will forge on and try and eat as much as I can. Thanks for tuning into the Wake Up America show. Remember, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from our listeners today on your text message. So let's hit the story. Oh, goodness gracious. You have to bear with me this morning. I'll try not to pull a Jeb Bush and be low energy, but I might be a little bit tamped down today just because, tummy. Red meat is not a health risk. New study slams years of shoddy research. This is a big story, a huge story, and I really think that you ought to take this with you, bookmark it, and share it with your friends. Studies have been linking red meat consumption to health problems like heart disease and cancer for years. But all of these studies that have come out have had a big methodological limitations. This is according to Big Think. Health scientists at the University of Washington scrutinized decades of research on red meat consumption and its links to various health outcomes. And they introduced a new way to self-assess health risks while they were doing this. They only found weak evidence that unprocessed red meat consumption is linked to colorectal cancer, breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, And most importantly of all, because this was the big one that everybody was touting for years, there is no link at all between eating red meat and a stroke. Now, studies have been, again, linking red meat consumption to a lot of health problems for years, right? If, strokes, heart disease, like, high cholesterol, well, you got to cut back on your red meat. But it turns out that a lot of those studies have relied on shoddy evidence for that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Bert Krosh, Quest Fanning, Cecilia Harden, Chris Morrill, and Tolly Owens. Nice to see you all today. Thanks for joining us over on the live stream. And we're thankful to have you over on YouTube, our first full day being monetized. The funny thing was, yesterday when I went through to monetize all my videos, almost all of my streams were ineligible. So hopefully in the future, I'll be able to produce content on YouTube that is both entertaining, but also doesn't get me demonetized. Robbie Theraman is giggling in carnivore. Good morning, Robbie. Nice to see you this morning. And Carpaccio for the win from our new friend over on Twitch, Nara US 333. Glad to have you here. Cecilia says, bring on the medium rare steak. Oh, baby Cecilia, you know what I like. How about a little steak and eggs today? You know, you love to see it. So red meat, not a health risk, at least according to the scientists of the University of Washington. And they've been, looking at all of these major studies, and they found that when they came up with it, when they were doing all of this research, they actually formulated a new rating system to help communicate health risks of certain types of food in the process. So this is a really big, big deal. And the findings mostly dispel any concerns about eating red meat. Are you following me on this one? Any concerns with eating red meat? Again, if these scientists are to be believed, they summarized in this one that this is their quote: "We found weak evidence of association between unprocessed red meat consumption and colorectal cancer, breast cancer, type 2 diabetes, and ischemic heart disease." I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And moreover, we found no evidence of an association between unprocessed red meat and ischemic stroke or hemorrhagic stroke, they summarized. So they say that they have been observing the shoddy nature of health science for decades. Each year, hundreds of what they say, frankly, lazy studies are published that simply attempt to find an observational link between some action, eating a food, for example, and a health outcome like death or disease. In the end, owing to these sloppy methods, varying subject populations, and inconsistent statistical measures, everything, especially different foods, seem to be both associated and not associated with cancer. So, how are people in the public, how are we supposed to kind of interpret this mess, right? Well, the researchers came up with what they call a burden of proof risk function. This is a new statistical method that they came up with to evaluate and summarize evidence of risk across different risk outcome pairs. Okay, so you stick with me on this one. This is going to be these are some, big words, but we'll try and break it down. So they introduced this new rating system. An 1-star rating indicates there may be no true association between the behavior or condition and the health outcome. 2 stars indicates the behavior or condition is at least associated with a 0 to 15% change in the likelihood of a health outcome. 3 stars indicates 15 to 50% change. 4 stars, 50 to 85. And then 5 stars would indicate an 85% more change, meaning very, very likely to be correlated. Now, when the scientists at the University of Washington used this function, they found that when it came to red meat, that none of the red meats that they tested very warranted greater than a 2-star rating. They say that the evidence for a direct vascular or health risk from eating meat regularly is very low. To that point, there is probably no risk. This is Dr. Stephen Novella. He's a Yale neurologist and president of the New England Skeptical Society, which I'm a big fan of, actually. I'm a member of skeptical societies myself. He says there is, however, more evidence for a health risk from eating too few vegetables. So the problem may not be that that you're eating red meat. It might be that you're not throwing some vegetables down with it, right? Get your medium rare steak, Cecilia. get yourself a nice big baked potato on the side, and then add a little, fresh broccoli or veggies and, a little cheese on top of the broccoli if you got a problem with the brocs. But I don't know about you, but I actually really like vegetables. I love red meat. I love vegetables. I'm basically like a human goat. And yes, that also means the greatest of all time, obviously. But throw it down my throat and, I'll eat it. Hence the reason why I probably got food poisoning today. What do you, yeah, so red meat, it won't give you cancer or heart attack, but it will give you a little bit of an upset tummy if it's not cooked properly. What do you think about that? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you on this one. Quest Fanning messaged in, says that the Basement Tapes episode of Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History related to revisiting cholesterol research is worth a listen. Poignant too. Yeah. Remember when they were telling us that eating eggs was linked to high cholesterol and all that stuff? And then we found out, well, actually there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol. It's amazing how terrible health science has been over the years and how we've just all these industries have grown up around it based on terrible research. And, this is kind of like, again, this is the skeptic in me, why I'm not prone to conspiracy theories. Most conspiracy theories, I would say, is because what happens is that whenever something is, claimed to be true, there will spring up an entire industry devoted to this untruth, to serving people based on a lie. And then what happens is that when it's found out to be a lie, you have an entire industry devoted to ensuring, devoted to this capitalistic function, right? This is one of the downfalls. Yes, there are negatives to capitalism, right? It's not all sunny rainbows and things like that. There are downsides to it. And then you have this entire industry that's devoted to this lie and promoting this lie and making money off of this lie. It's kind of like, what would be a good example? Perhaps like tobacco, right? Back in the day. Remember the ads like 4 out of 5 doctors say smoking camels helps with a fresh breath, like cleaner, healthier camel smokes, right? Back in the day. It's very much the same way with our health industry. I mean, like how many how many more like veggie mommies do we have to watch, or like the banana girl where it's like, just eat only bananas and you'll be just fine, right? While they show their ass on Instagram, their butt on Instagram. Again, try not to get demonetized on this one, just to see if it's possible for me to do a YouTube video that doesn't get demonetized. Anyways, I know my YouTube, parents are going to be watching these new videos today because I got a message from them last night that said, score your own video on how you think it is for advertisers, and then we will compare it. And if we can trust you to rank your own videos, then we'll allow you to do it, which is kind of odd if you think about it. But anyways, I'm going to try, at least it's Thanksgiving anyway. So let's try and maybe do some family friendly content this week anyway. But, so we'll see how that goes. But so yeah, I'll try and watch my language a little bit more lately. I know Chris Morrill is not going to like that, and I know he wants me to create AP After Dark, but I don't think I can do 3 shows a day. Nara US 333, our new friend over on Twitch this morning, being very chatty, glad to have you here, said, yes, enough facts. There's an agenda here. If you don't agree, you're racist or transphobic or some other nasty little label that allows the sycophants to cancel you. Yes, I know. I love medium rare filet mignon, they say. A little expensive, but yes, absolutely. I love filet mignon, but I got to be honest. I think the ribeye is a better cut. The thing about the filet mignon that is delicious is the texture. But to me, the flavor of the ribeye is really, Robbie Thurman asking the real questions this morning. Is beer a vegetable? I think the answer to that is yes, because it is made from malted hops, which means a vegetable, right? So there you go. Quest Fanning says, try and remember the term for the statistics process for isolating variables. I don't know what that is at all. I'm not a scientist. I'm a talk show host. Cecilia says, I like it when they tell me coffee is bad and good all within a week. High blood pressure, but also helps memory. Overall, makes me a productive member of society. Amen, Cecilia. Amen. I'm with you on that one. I had some other stories as well. JP says, red meat is good for the soul. Hands down. Amen, JP. I'm thankful for you all. Beyond Meat's got some big problems. I love the Wall Street Journal headline. Beyond Meat's very real problems. Slumping sausages, mounting losses, Reading another article over the New York Post, Beyond Meat factory riddled with mold and other dirty conditions, according to leaked documents. Go meat, team meat. I'm not going to live in the pod. I'm not going to eat the bugs. I'm going to eat the meat. Give me that big, delicious meat. Tube steak. There goes my monetization. All right, we'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're so grateful to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. My tummy hurts. Got a little food poisoning last night. Now I'm just like, bathroom. I feel like a little bit of pain this morning. I know, I'll try and be fun for you though. I'm sorry. One more day of shows. So real quick, let me gotta give you the schedule for the rest of the week. I'm gonna take a 4-day weekend, right? This is a holiday week because this is like one of the big holidays. So I'm gonna do one of them big old holiday deals. And so here's what's gonna happen. I will do a live show tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow morning, Wake Up America show. No problemo. You get your show, okay? You can sit in your home in your PJs, sipping your hot chocolate in the morning or your coffee or tea or whatever, and watch me while I slave away in the cold with a hurt tummy. And then Thursday, I will do a best of show. Friday may not be a show, okay? I haven't decided yet because I have to work really hard to like pre-produce all those best of shows, so I might just do a show. But here's the thing. Of course, there's the afternoon show. There's the Austin Peterson show. And I will also do one of those today and tomorrow. Thursday and Friday, those will be best ofs. So it's called Get a Life. I'm taking a break. I need a holiday with my family. Okay? How about that one? Yeah, going number 3, says Quest Fanning. Yeah, for sure. Matt Unruly says, first day of monetization and I had to look up your channel because you weren't listed in my subscriptions. How do you like that? Elizabeth Fanning says, red meat is why nature blessed us with meat teeth and fire. You know what? I think that's a good name for your canines. I'm going to start calling that a name. We need to rebrand our canines and just call them meat teeth. Talking about always trusting science. One of my friends from the 573 just messaged me. I think this is Albert Krockenfels. Good morning, Albert. Showing pictures of when we were always told to trust the science, and it has all these pictures of always trust science. You know what? I think I can pull this up for you. Let me take you over to my Twitter scene. Since I'm a little slow today, I might as well just, slowly transition you over here. Yes, that's a video that you're going to see later when I have Camellia on. Oh no, why did I do that? Oh, you can see all your messages. Okay, there we go. Whatever. Here you go. Check it out. All right, so always trust the science. Thank you for this, Albert. I've got the picture pulled up. If you're not watching this show and you're just listening to it, you're missing out. I pulled up your picture. Nico Time cigarettes. Nico Time. The smooth taste expectant mothers crave. No flies on me, thanks to DDT, heroin hydrochloride, and let this magic mineral asbestos. What were they thinking of doing with the asbestos? I have no friggin' clue. That's kind of strange. But what was the purported health benefit of asbestos? I have no idea. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Have you been enjoying the new commercials and the new music and everything that I've been putting in? The new music is there to try and help, freshen things up. That's what the new commercials are for. But the new music is stuff that I bought and downloaded and licensed so that hopefully I don't get demonetized. You can send us a text, 573-319-1586. Go enjoy time with your family, says Cecilia. I absolutely will, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, I did have a story. Oh, yeah, we were talking about the lab-grown meat. So speaking of, being skeptical, right? Being skeptical of conspiracy theories, there are some conspiracies that I believe in. I call them conspiracies, not conspiracy theories, because I consider them conspiracy facts. But this one over at NBC News, anything that I read at NBC News is going to make me skeptical. Don't be so quick to dismiss lab-grown meat. The FDA's approval of cell-cultured meat is the perfect opportunity to look at how it's far better than the meat we already eat. All right. So here's the thing. In light of, skepticism and being skeptical, am I skeptical of this meat? Sure. But am I also being skeptical about the meat that's going to be lab cultured? Of course. Maybe it's going to be good for us, totally delicious, and we won't have to rely so much on agriculture in order to get our meat fix, right? Because quite frankly, if at a cellular level, it's the exact same thing as, a steak. It tastes the exact same as steak, has the same health benefits of a steak. It's just one's grown in a lab, one's grown in a cow. Right? Then great, say la vie. That would be awesome. I would love that because it would make meat cheaper. And honestly, if we can make steak a lot cheaper, I think that would be great. Steak should be a human right, honestly. Delicious steak. And if not everybody can have it off the cow, the fact that we can have some lab-grown meat, as long as it's, purportedly safe, which again, we have reason to be skeptical of, then I'll try it, right? NBC is pushing it, so that makes me skeptical about it because I think that they're, reptilian overlords trying to kill us all and make us live in the pod and eat the bugs. But I'm also skeptical of that claim. Again, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Quest out here trying to get me in trouble this morning says, I think it's interesting to juxtapose academia's obsession with asserting that the founding fathers were atheists with George Washington's original 1789 Thanksgiving Proclamation. Quest said that. Yeah, I don't think that there's any doubt that George Washington was a Christian or that John Adams were, and I think Thomas Jefferson was outwardly Christian, but mostly it's because he wouldn't, a lot of times when a politician says that they're religious, even George Washington, you ought to be skeptical of that because for the most part, I think politicians lie about their religion because I think it's a way to dupe the masses, right? It's a great way. I see it happen all the time. People who are not religious in any way, shape, or form, or who I know, have expressed atheist sentiments in the past. So you see them converting to religion either because, they want to look cool and be a part of a tribe, or that they want people to vote for them and to get them to elective office. So I think in part that Thomas Jefferson, for example, he wasn't outwardly atheist, but I think he was probably inwardly atheist, or what you might call, you might say agnostic, for example, but because of so many of his quotes. But he had to be very careful about that because, again, in the late 1700s, you did not say that kind of stuff out loud. Thomas Paine, one of the reasons I think that Thomas Paine, not just because of what he did during the French Revolution, but one of the reasons why I think Thomas Paine was, lived his life penniless at the end of his life and was, a pauper and was sort of cast out, kind of a castaway from society, is largely because of his book, The Age of Reason, which detailed the horrors of religion and it's what it has inflicted on humanity. So, when you say the founding fathers, you could say that Thomas Paine is not an official founding father, but he is an unofficial founding father, but he was most decidedly atheist. So anyways, George Washington was not. Okay, great. You like George Washington? Cool. I'm more of a Thomas Paine guy myself. Yes, Thomas Paine was ostracized because he was outwardly atheist. Again, send us a text, 573-319-1586. Coming up next on the show, my good buddy Patrick Carroll will be joining us from the Foundation for Economic Education. Say that, slow down, Austin. Say that 3 times fast. And we're going to talk to him about answering the question, are libertarians house cats? All that and more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you? I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, it's 7:34, and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamericashow.com. All right, well, are libertarians house cats? That's the subject of this piece that my friend Patrick Carroll wrote over at fee.org, and it got me thinking this morning. I bet you our friend Chris Morrill, who watches the show every day, would appreciate a segment like this one. Well, it wasn't meant as a compliment, even though I know Chris loves cats. We'll talk to Patrick Carroll what it's all about. He's joining us live on camera right now from the Foundation for Economic Education. Patrick, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Austin.
Right. So thanks for coming on. I wrote an article a number of years ago asking the question, if cats are libertarians and dogs are statists or something like that. And it was, meant in good fun and jest. But apparently somebody on Twitter last night or not last night, but recently compared libertarians to house cats. What was he trying to describe us as, Patrick?
Yeah, so about a year ago, a pastor and progressive commentator named John Pavlovitz put out to his Twitter audience, in your own words, how would you describe libertarians? And this guy named John Spalding, he responded, and his response basically blew up over the internet. And he said, they're house cats. They are convinced of their fierce independence while utterly dependent on a system they don't appreciate or understand. And I just found that obviously it's kind of witty. It kind of struck a chord with people because it's been shared everywhere. But as I got thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? There's something to that, but there's also something missing with his response. And so I wanted to push back on that characterization a bit with my article.
Okay, so then how would you say that libertarians are like that? How would you say that his description would be accurate, like you say?
Yeah, so I think his description is accurate in that we are dependent, right? If we look at our lives, we have to admit we are very dependent on the government. The government provides myriad services for us, from emergency services to security to postage, that we are currently incapable of providing for ourselves. And so I think the dependence piece, there's something accurate there.
And why would you say that it's inaccurate, though?
Yeah, so where I think it's inaccurate is where he says on a system they don't appreciate or understand. And I think it's actually him who doesn't really understand the system, because the thing is, the parallel goes further. It's not just that we're dependent, but also like house cats, we are dependent because we live in captivity, right? It's not that we are helpless beings, that we are naturally impotent. No, we're very capable of helping ourselves through the free market, providing to have our needs met. But what happens is we've had our hands tied. We've been captured. In a cat's case, it's much more of a physical captivity. For us, it's restrictions on the contracts we can make with one another, on the kinds of businesses we're allowed to set up. And so what's happened is not that we are naturally dependent, but that we have been rendered dependent by the government's rules and restrictions that make it impossible for us to be independent, to get our needs met without them, despite the fact that we're very capable of doing so. And so that's where I think the characterization falls short. And then when he says things like, and this is a very common idea, well, you don't appreciate the system. It's like the system crippled me, right? It's as if the government broke my leg, handed me crutches, and then said, well, aren't you so thankful I gave you crutches? Well, no, you're the reason I need crutches in the first place. And so I think the metaphor actually backfires in a sense. It's a caricature, but if you think about it, house cats are perfectly capable of living independently, and the same is true of people. People ought not to be pets, in my view.
It reminds me a little bit of that quote from the movie 300 when Xerxes or whatever it is says, "I am a generous God," right? They do have a bit of the attitude of the benevolent dictator. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Patrick Carroll. He's a writer for the Foundation for Economic Education. We were talking about the question of whether libertarians are like house cats. Chris Morrill says, yeah, well, house cats are much better suited for living in the wild than domesticated dogs are. Very funny. Quest Fanning this morning says that with the government having usurped so many societal roles, they've forced dependence. Very good point. You can also text the show at 573-319-1586. Patrick, I'd like to move on to another subject, a question that was raised that caused you to write an article over at fee.org about drone surveillance. It didn't used to be a question before the invention of airplanes. When you used to buy private property, you owned the land, you owned what was beneath it. There were some mineral rights questions that came up in the in the 1800s, of course. And you would also own all of the air, the space above your house and your property or your real estate. But that changed with the invention of airplanes. All of a sudden, there was a buffer zone for what you could reasonably be expected to own in terms of airspace above your head on your property. Now that space has just started to get smaller and smaller with the invention and proliferation of drones. And the question is now, how much can we reasonably expect to have our private and personal space protected from what I would call unreasonable searches and seizures from drones? This is starting to become, pop up in many cases. Would you like to discuss it?
Yeah, for sure. So I wrote a piece for fee.org recently, and I broke down a case that's being taken on by the Institute for Justice about a couple called Todd and Heather Maxson, who live in Long Lake Township, Michigan. They have a rural 5-acre property, and Todd likes to fix up cars. He keeps a lot of vehicles on his property, but they've been in a years-long battle with the township over this because they are accusing him of illegally storing junk on his property. And so they're saying it's a zoning violation. And so they've been going back and forth. And anyways, the township hired this contractor to fly a drone over their property and take pictures. And the drone flew as low as 150 feet over their property multiple times over 2 years. And now the township is trying to use these pictures as evidence against the Maxons in court because you can't actually see the vehicles from public roads. You need the drone pictures to prove that it's even there. And so there's this whole court battle because the township didn't even try to get a warrant. And this is what Institute for Justice points out, like this is a blatant violation of what they would call Fourth Amendment rights. And I have some philosophical nuances that I add in my article about that. But yeah, it's basically the township is violating their property rights, certainly with the zoning laws, and they're using the drone surveillance as a means of doing that. And so I think obviously it sets a very dangerous precedent. And drone technology is something that is really improving government's capabilities to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. And that's something that I think we should, of course, all be concerned about.
So in terms of nuances, and this is just, for my own, kicks and giggles here, but the question is, you should always have to get a warrant. But I mean, if you get a warrant, then at that point, it probably doesn't matter whether it's a drone or whether it's a satellite, because on some semblance, we're all being surveilled by private companies. Google is taking photographs of us and all of our private property. You can tell Google, hey, I'd like to be removed from this. And, and the reason I know this is because Nancy Pelosi's house is blurred out in San Francisco, which caused me to question, well, hey, can anybody do this? Well, apparently anybody can. But I mean, in terms of like a reasonable expectation of privacy, I mean, if I own a drone and I want to fly it around my neighborhood, what kind of expectation should be placed on a private citizen, would you say, in terms of like, respecting property rights and, taking photos?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And I think there's two extremes that we want to avoid here. Obviously, the one extreme is we don't want drones flying everywhere and absolutely no privacy, right? People like privacy. I think privacy is very important. And so that doesn't work. But I think we have to be careful of not going to the other extreme where we say people have a right to privacy, because once we start saying that, then, well, what about journalism, like investigative journalism? What about a private investigator, a detective? What about gossip? It leads to some really interesting problems. And so Walter Block, the economist and political philosopher, he talks about this in a chapter called Peeping Tom in his book, Defending the Undefendable 2. And the point that he makes is we don't have a right to privacy from a philosophical basis, but we do have a right to property rights, and we can always engage in contracts in the market to basically have some guarantees of our privacy, right? So I might live in a gated community with a homeowners association or whatever, and the contract for living in that community might be I'm not allowed to fly drones, or I'm not allowed to invade privacy in a certain way. So I think what we really need is a decentralized market-based approach to privacy. And so absolutely we want rules that are regulating who can use drones, where drones can be used. I think that makes perfect sense. But I think it makes a lot more sense to have those rules be kind of a bottom-up approach, a market-based approach, rather than having the government come in and say, here's your privacy rights, here's not your privacy rights. That's a one-size-fits-all system. Libertarians know that doesn't work. And I think that philosophically, it also doesn't work with our views on private property rights.
Patrick, do you think, and this is we're venturing into big brain territory here, and it's a little early, but hopefully, this isn't something that throws off too many of our listeners here. Stick around with me. But do you think that questions like these, when it comes to private property rights, in terms of, what can reasonably be expected to be a private property right, do you think that, when it comes to like drones or airplanes flying over your property, for example, do you think that poses a problem to deontological, philosophical approaches, right? The sort of black or white approach of like moral rules that are absolutely fixed. Because to me, it seems, in a situation like that, you really have to have a more utilitarian viewpoint and be more flexible in your views. Because while, if you or I were libertarians living in the 1700s or 1800s before the invention of the airplane, if we were deontological, we would have said, well, there's absolutely no right for anyone to fly across my property, right? But the invention of airplanes required us to have flexibility in our, view of property rights. And now with the proliferation of drones, we have to say, well, yeah, people have a right to fly drones around the neighborhood within some reasonable expectations, right? So would you say that that poses a bit of a challenge to fix moral rules?
I don't think so. I think we just need to be really careful about private property rights. So in the past, they had the ad coelum doctrine, which basically was the idea that you own property all the way up to the sky and all the way down to the middle of the earth. But more recent libertarian kind of analysis, in my view, has basically said that doesn't really work well with our view, because it's really about what have you homesteaded? What have you kind of appropriated? And you can't appropriate 1,000 feet into the air. And so I don't think that planes flying over someone's property was ever really a violation of private property rights, because they had never homesteaded that space to begin with. So certainly, I'm sympathetic to practical considerations, and it's easy to kind of get very siloed into black and white, like strict moral rules, and then kind of ignore practicalities. But I think in a lot of cases where people have brought up practical considerations, it's often been, as with the ad coelum doctrine, not so much a problem with the theory, but just a problem with how we're interpreting and applying the theory. So I am pretty strictly deontological, but I don't think that deontology creates as many problems as many people say it will.
See, my thing is that for it's really about the tools in your toolkit. I kind of see, deontologicalism in much the same way that I see something like Occam's razor, for example, more of a philosophical rule to be used, like a means rather than an end, if you will. But these are things that are we've got to be really careful talking about so early before people have had their coffee. But I do appreciate the conversation. And Patrick, welcome to the show. We are glad to have you here for your very first time on the program. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. What did you think of Patrick? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Did you like him? Should I bring him back? If you did, like the stream, give us a little subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification icon. We'll be back with more. What do you call your in-laws? I know, it sounds like a strange question, but I mean, it's legit. What do you call them? Apparently, different people call them different things. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
You exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services. Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help. Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you, Ben.
Enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, The facts on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho! Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving week. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. I was telling my wife the other day just how excited I was to see my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law. You know, you hear all these horror stories of people and their relationships with their mother-in-law. You get married, you got in-laws. A lot of people apparently have tension with their in-laws. And I get it. I understand it. I've seen people who have legitimate beefs or gripes or their mother-in-laws or father-in-laws or whatever, overbearing or just a general pain in the butt. But I got really lucky. I've got a great mother-in-law and I'm excited to see her and I can't wait for her to come and visit. I'm excited to have my family at my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And we invited another family over to our Thanksgiving dinner this week. We're excited to have the Mosleys who will be joining us as well. It's going to be fun. We're going to play Monopoly and eat turkey, and it'll be a great family time. Apparently not everybody knows what to call their in-laws. What do you call your in-laws? My mother-in-law, I just call her Verna. Just Verna. Just call her by her name, which I think is a lovely name. But a lot of newlyweds apparently are pretty perplexed. Some people say that they generally try to avoid using any names at all for their in-laws. This year, we're thinking we're probably going to hit a record for number of weddings, but of course that has to do with the old negative C word. But because so many people are getting married, and so many new people are coming in and saying, "Oh yeah, well, what do we call our in-laws? You call them mom and dad, right? Bill and Judy." Hey there, right? So a lot of advice columns have been kind of tackling this whole etiquette puzzle for years, and it's kind of popping up in households, not to a surprising degree. YouGov, which is a pollster, YouGov, conducted their first ever survey on the topic in recent months because there was a British person who wondered if the in-law discord that he saw featured in American television and movies was real. It was. According to YouGov's poll, 29% of couples call their in-laws by their first names. 17% of them refer to them as mom and dad, and 9% use Mr., Mrs., or Miss. The rest either don't have relationships with their in-laws or they aren't sure what to call them. Newlywed Lauren Coble was interviewed for this article on the Wall Street Journal. She says that she struggles with what to call her in-laws. She originally called her husband's parents Mr. and Mrs., which felt comfortable because she had a Southern upbringing. But the trouble came once that they suggested that she use their first names. She says, I'm mortified anytime their first names leave my mouth. So now I just avoid it. I think that's kind of funny. It did honestly feel kind of weird to me as well, because when Steffi and I got married a year ago, I was kind of like, well, what do I call her, right? Should it be, Mrs. Cole, right? But she's not married. So is it, Miss Cole, right? But that's her old name. Do you call her mom, right? So I kind of waffle back and forth between both. And probably this week when she comes to visit, I will call her both. But Verna is just like what I default to. But there definitely is kind of like a weirdness there. You know what's funny is I don't call anybody Mr. And, maybe this just smacks of like, maybe this is just a sign of like my arrogance and my ego. I literally call no one Mr. I have not called someone a Mr. since I think I was in high school. And maybe that's just, I don't know if that's how I was raised or upbringing, or like I just think too highly of myself, but I literally call no one Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. I do not refer to people by those honorifics. What about you? Do you call people, well, Mr. Peterson, hello, Mr. Peterson, hello, Mrs. blah, blah, blah. I did that when I was a child, and I did, to be respectful. But why would you, when you're an adult, call someone Mr. Brown, right? Call me, I've never had anyone ask me to call them Mr. Brown or like whatever their name is. But yeah, I've never called anybody I've never called anybody Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. It's at least since I was a child. Steffi says, I call your dad Papa Peterson. I called him that when I volunteered for the campaign. Yes, that's so sweet. That is very sweet. Good morning, Allie O'Neill. Thank you for joining us on the show today. The big guy says, 23 years. I just don't. Bert says, I try not to call them anything. And Steffi says, yes, Verna works. My mom likes that. Yes, Verna. That's what I call her, and that's what she likes to be called. So what do you call your in-laws? I just thought this was fascinating that people are having this kind of a problem, that they don't know what to call each other. But yeah, Mr. and Mrs. That's for kids, I think. Or if you've got a teacher, right? But when you're a kid, you have teachers. I don't know. It just seems as if it's a little bit too much. Just, what do you want me to call you? How about that? I guess the only problem with that is like, how do you tell someone, call me mom or call me dad? Like that also feels like a problem. Okay, all right. Now I see why this is a bit of an issue with people. It's Thanksgiving week. I'm trying to keep it light, keep the stories down, but we're going to have to elevate it a little bit. Camilia's segment is coming up. She might be the reason I get demonetized from YouTube today. So in order to help avoid the whole demonetization thing, make sure that you check out the online shop, apforlibertyshop.com. Over there. Get yourself a sweater, get yourself a cool little Buddha, whatever you need at the AP for Liberty shop. And we'll be back with more of the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
My name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchie Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchie Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
the real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchie Bush. This is my Didi's website.
Yesterday, Pfizer announced they have an RSV vaccine for pregnant women, and they have plans to submit their trial data to the Food and Drug Administration for approval by the end of this year. The vaccine was designated as a breakthrough therapy by the FDA in March, which grants Pfizer an expedited development and review process. White House COVID-19 advisor says that he's, quote, hopeful there will be an RSV vaccine by next fall. According to the CDC, virtually all children develop an RSV infection by the time they are 2 years old. RSV is a common virus that produces cold-like symptoms, and about 0.5 up to 2% of children and infants who contract RSV require hospitalizations, and that rate is much higher among children younger than 6 months. Thankfully, the mortality rate is much lower. Pfizer's vaccine would be administered to pregnant women in their third trimester, and according to their phase 3 study, is about 82% effective at protecting against severe illness in the first 90 days of life, and about 57% effective at protecting against any illness during that time. The effectiveness, of course, wanes in the first 6 months of life, about another 10 to 15%. A separate drug manufacturer last year was in a close race with Pfizer to develop this maternal RSV vaccine when it paused its phase 3 trial earlier this year due to an undisclosed safety concern.
Good morning. It's 8:04. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Well, what is it with the left's obsession with kids? Why is it every single day when I open the internet and pull up Twitter, I say to myself, well, there's a perfect scene from our Twitter weirdness. Take a listen to this clip from someone courtesy of the Washington Free Beacon yesterday talking about having kids at, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and play the clip. Please don't demonetize me, YouTube. Take a listen.
How significant are those two dates?
Yeah, and also hours before what they called an all-ages drag brunch, which is probably the number one target of these anti-LGBTQ events recently. Like, for example, the Proud Boys will go and protest any drag brunch, any drag story hour, anything that a child might go to meet a drag queen, not, just to show them that they're human beings and people. They go there and they read Dr. Seuss there. They read regular books, but it's read by a drag queen, and they have breakfast. It is not some hypersexual event, but that's what it's viewed as on the far right. And these spaces have become dangerous places of real-life information warfare. There's Proud Boys showing up on one side. Sometimes people, like local Antifa members, show up on the other side as a way to... It becomes a place where kids aren't safe, not because of the event itself, but because of this culture war that's been propped up on top of it. And that's not something that should happen. This is not something, these people should be able to live their lives without fear of being murdered, literally. But right now, that's the sort of climate that's been created by anti-LGBTQ protesters and, frankly, bigots.
Boy, this is a really tough one. We're going to have the big guns here. That's Camelia Peterson joining us now live on camera. Good morning, CJ. Thanks so much for joining us. We're glad to have you here.
Good morning.
Yes, thanks so much for coming on. Happy Thanksgiving week to you.
And to you and everyone else.
Yes, thanks for bringing me Yingling the other day.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry that I have to have you on for all these, extra difficult topics and things like that, because, how about this? Give me your take, your response to how he feels, to what he said.
Well, I could not hear it as it was playing.
Right.
I have watched it once before, but, the thing is that when you posted this, you also posted that you have never been to a drag queen show that was not hypersexualized. Mm-hmm. And that's just the thing, is that's been the controversy about this all along, is what is the intent of something like this? What does it normalize? Are we just, what's the purpose of them just going and reading Dr. Seuss? When I was thinking about this, actually, Felicity and I were talking about this last night, and about the idea of what you normalize in society. And is this just people dressing up and going and reading Dr. Seuss for kids, and it's innocent and it's no big deal? And I was just thinking, if that's the case, if this is just about people dressing up, can women go to, drag queen story hour and dress up, in hyper, like, super
lingerie or whatever?
Yeah, right. I mean, and great big fake eyelashes and great big fake boobs and everything else. Is that okay? I mean, is it okay for women to do that, or is it only okay for men to dress as women like this? Because if it's not, then this is not just about dressing up and going and reading to children.
Right. And it's such a difficult situation for people like yourself and myself, where, this like brings out our conservative instincts. But then when you saw what happened at that nightclub in Colorado, obviously a terrible, horrible crime, right? And, it wasn't like,
Sure.
He talks about these things being targeted, these drag brunches and things like that. I can absolutely see what he's talking about, that there might be a danger of that. But I mean, the problem is that, to an extent, violence must be used to protect children, right? It's just that we ask the government to do it, for the police to do it. The correct way to do this is that the police should not be in there protecting the drag queens so that they can read this stuff to the kids and sexualize these kids. It's that the police should be shutting these kinds of things down, in my opinion, right? And, that probably won't make me popular, but the fact is that, two things can be true at once. Gay people should be allowed to be free and get married and have relationships just like everybody else. And they should not be, involved with sexualizing children.
Sure. And I think this is
Straight
where you
people
also get
shouldn't.
into the right. This is where you get into the sticky area of parents' rights. And the thing is that there has to be a line somewhere as far as what is appropriate or not appropriate with children. There should be no discussion as to whether or not it's appropriate to introduce sexual material to children we have to set an age for that, but we're talking about, toddlers and, middle schoolers. And this is, I don't think that groups like the Proud Boys and stuff, I don't think that they should be showing up to these things armed. There's really no purpose in that other to intimidate. And that doesn't do any good. It doesn't help anyone. So I don't agree with that either. I think there are other ways that we need to address that.
Man, how do we address that then, Camelia? Because, in essence, we really are talking about like actually making laws. Laws, we need to go to our state legislatures and ask our state lawmakers to intervene, to find the best possible solution. And, number one, we ought to talk about protecting kids from being transitioned. That should be the number one thing, because what I believe that is child abuse. And then two, maybe deal with the question of sports, right, and intergender sports, and that's one question. But then three, when we talk, third on the priority list should be preventing kids from being sexualized like this. And I'm going to sidestep this into this Balenciaga campaign. Did you see this story that I shared with you yesterday? This is
Yes.
about, they showed this little girl who was holding a teddy bear that was wearing adult, like the kind of thing that you would find if you walked into an adult shop. This teddy bear was. And it's again, another situation where you have these kids being, exposed. I feel bad for the poor little girl. I was watching this video the other day of Brooke Shields talking about how when she was 10 years old or 15 years old or whatever in this Calvin Klein campaign, Barbara Walters, women do it too, like was sexualizing her and asking her all these questions. What is it with these adults that they can't understand, like the difference between an adult and a child? Why do people feel the need to do this? And this is the kind of thing, this Balenciaga campaign, that I think gives credence. It does. It's the kind of thing that inspires that kind of thing that happened in Colorado. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and if you look at the pictures on this photo shoot, it's just disturbing. The whole thing is disturbing. I mean, not only are the teddy bears in bondage gear and the little girl, sorry, but the little girl holding the teddy bear, her whole face looks like, what the heck are they doing to me? I mean, she does not in any way look happy about this. And I think probably what's most disturbing about this is that kind of hidden in that whole display in the background is a court document about pornography, about child pornography. I mean, what the heck is going on with that? That's just bizarre. That's sick.
Yeah, I agree. If you're just tuning into the morning show, the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, then you're listening to Camelia Peterson, who is joining us right now. She's the editor of the Libertarian Republic and an activist at Americans for Prosperity here in the state of Missouri. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Let's move on to something a little bit more family friendly.
Well, can I say something just real quick? I wanted to point something out. Is that something that comes in with this that I think that we talk about a little bit is that there does seem to be this left-right divide on who is actually caring for the welfare of children, because the stuff that comes up with sexualizing children and making this normal is coming from the left. And in fact, when we talk about Elon taking over Twitter, that is one of the first things that has happened, is that people were going after Twitter for years for allowing child pornography on their site. Elon came on, and that is one of the first things that they addressed. And the hashtags that were involved with child sex trafficking plummeted. They were removed. And so and he said that is his number one priority, and he's getting dragged for not letting Alex Jones on there, but anyway, so I'm just saying there is a difference in who is actually, caring about the kids.
Yeah, well, we're definitely getting demonetized with the words of, in the future, we'll call it CP. It's okay. It's also for Camellia Peterson. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Hey, Camellia, let's talk about something a little bit more family friendly, shall we? Nice mug, by the way. Oh,
Thank you. You like that?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. What is that? Where did we get that? Oh, how
You
nice.
can find this Thomas Jefferson coffee mug at the AP for Liberty shop.
Yes, use code
Rare
in the checkout for a discount. Thanks for that,
Yes.
CJ. Appreciate that. What is this? You sent me this this like lady who's like having problems. Her cookies were not accepted for Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, so they've decided to withdraw their invitation to appear with her family. What is this?
Oh my gosh. I saw this story the other day and somebody was like, am I the a-hole for calling
Yeah.
my wife unreasonable for backing out of spending Christmas with my family after my mother rejected her cookie sample? And apparently the deal is that this mother-in-law actually for every Thanksgiving dinner is very concerned. They have guests over and is very concerned about the food that they're going to serve. And so she has people, any of the family members or who are going to participate in contributing food to the meal, have to send her a sample of what they're going to bring so that she can taste it and either accept it or reject it. And so this son's wife, I guess for like 2 years, had submitted her dessert sample and had been rejected every time. And so this year it was a cookie theme, and she worked really hard and submitted her sample cookie and was rejected. And so she was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going. And so he's torn between supporting, his mother and supporting his wife. And he thinks his wife is being unreasonable, even though, she's crying, and he's telling her her baking is amazing, but still, mom takes precedence. And what's funny is that at the end, he gives an update and he's like, so great. He was like, I just got off the phone with my brother. And his brother told him that his wife is doing the same thing, and they are backing out of the, this was Christmas, I guess, they're backing out of the Christmas dinner. And so now this is whole family brouhaha. Like, I cannot even imagine. I've never had, I think those mother-in-laws are more rare.
Yeah, I think so too. And just like yourself, Camellia, that's Camellia Peterson. You can follow her on Twitter at Rare Camellia. Camellia, is there anything else that you'd like people to know before we let you go? Because this is your only appearance this week.
Yes, and I would like to say I'm very thankful, and I'm very thankful for my family, and just wanted to real quick, Felicity is with me this time, so I wanted to let her say hi to everyone.
Hi, Felicity.
Here, come in closer. I don't know if you'll have to get in closer. There we go.
Happy Thanksgiving, Felicity.
Oh, she didn't speak. Oh, well.
Okay, she didn't say anything? Okay.
No.
I was going to ask her to sing a song for us.
Well, I don't think that would have happened, but
okay.
No, I'm very, very thankful for all of you and for this community.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great community. The Cantina crew, Camellia Peterson, editor of Libertarian Republic and activist for AFP. Thanks so much for your time today.
Have a great week.
Have a great week. Did you like Camellia? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Yeah, you might see Camellia again in the later in the week, but it's going to be replays. So maybe I'll cut this and play it in another episode for the best of on Thursday and Friday. What do we got coming up on the show? Oh, coming up next, we got our good buddy, Squiggly Line Guy. What are we going to talk to Squiggly Line Guy about? Well, why isn't Alex Jones going to be allowed back on Twitter? Talk about that and more when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Stephanie, Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 8:23. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Well, I've noticed something strange in the last couple of weeks. Ever since Elon Musk took over Twitter, my follower count has been going through the roof. And I wondered if maybe it was just that they didn't suppress me anymore and I was allowed to be seen on the platform. Maybe I had been shadow banned or something. But then I thought about it. You know what it probably is? It's probably that so many people who like to follow me are the type of people who get banned from Twitter. Joining me is a man who's been banned, and he's back. Squiggly Line Guy joining us now. Good morning, Squiggly. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, good morning, Austin. Good people of Missouri.
Glad to have you here, Squiggly Guy. So before we talk about the elephant in the room, let's just talk a little bit about how kind of Elon Musk has been handling the whole unbanning process. So everybody knows that Donald Trump got unbanned. We don't know if he'll actually use it because he's got his own platform, et cetera, et cetera. But we are starting to see a lot of people who had kind of been deplatformed starting to come back. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so not only did Donald Trump come back, although he hasn't tweeted yet, and I'm not sure he's going to be tweeting at all between now and December at the very least, just because the whole DWAC merger is going on for his True Social going public. So it's kind of like he kind of has to keep his mouth shut between now and then on social media. And then after that, other rules can apply. But, aside from that, Jordan Peterson is back. The Babylon Bee is back. iReporter Savannah Hernandez is back. James Lindsay, Sargana Bakad, Juanita Broderick. They've all come back, a few a day. So it seems like, people have just, kind of slowly been getting released out.
Oh my God. And what has the reaction to the left been like, Squigs?
It's just the most beautiful that you've ever heard. Everybody's saying that they're going to Mastodon, which Mastodon is basically like a message board that's for people that are offended by everything, that need to be managed by Reddit mods. I mean, it's just a joke over there.
If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to my friend, Squiggly Line Guy. He became known as the Squiggly Line Guy because when he wrote his name in Japanese on Facebook, it looked like a bunch of squiggly lines, and now we just call him Squigs, and that's how the name stuck. Squigs,
right?
Now Squigs, the elephant in the room, the big man, the one that everybody has banned, Alex Jones. It looks like Elon Musk isn't going to let him back. Why not?
So that's kind of an interesting one where I think it may still be too early to tell, but Elon Musk, has said that he just doesn't have, any mercy for, someone that uses, kids or, the deaths of children for, fortune or fame or politics or anything like that. But at the same time, people like, David Chipman, who burned children alive at Waco, are allowed on Twitter. So there's definitely a hole in the plot there. But at the same time, Alex Jones is kind of like the what was the catalyst for it all, where Alex Jones was essentially the very first person to get banned on social media. And, they said, well, it's easy. All you have to do is, not be a scumbag like Alex Jones. All you have to do is not call the parents of grieving children crisis actors like Alex Jones, and you'll be just fine. But that's not the case. Not everybody was just fine. In fact, I'm on my 5th Twitter account now. So it went down there very, very quick.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Squiggly Line Guy about Alex Jones not being allowed back on Twitter. Now, you're on your 5th account. You've been banned quite a bit. Me, mostly, I've been, I won't say banned, but just like suspended for inordinate amounts of time because of my support, typically because of my support for firearms ownership. But you, and be careful what words you use. Instead, use like CP instead of like child, can you kind of explain to us without using too much inflammatory language that might get me demonetized? Because I'm trying to keep this YouTube monetization going. But why were you specifically removed from Twitter and from other social platforms, Squigs?
Well, 2 times on Twitter, I was removed for the conspiracy theory that COVID came from the Wuhan lab, right?
How dare you?
2 times on Twitter, and it's very, very, that was always the most reasonable theory, right? That was like the furthest thing from a conspiracy theory possible. That was always like the most reasonable idea. But they always said that's been thoroughly debunked, even though that had never been debunked. And what they used to debunk that was essentially their source for that was an American scientist that worked at the Wuhan lab that was in kind of like their word on it, essentially made funding possible there. And it was them just like raising their hand saying, I attest that everything is good there, even though, we had cables from the Washington Post several years prior saying everything was not good there. We had someone with a conflict of interest saying, trust me, that's what made it into the fact checker on people's posts. And I got deplatformed from Twitter 2 times. And then, of course, on Facebook, I got deplatformed because someone reported my squiggly name as not being my real name. And Facebook took down my account and said, we need to see some ID. So I sent them my ID, and it took them 2 years to review it.
It took them 2 years to review it, your ID. But I mean, does your ID obviously is not written in Japanese, right?
Right. Yeah. So essentially what they did was they changed they changed my name back to, my English name, my real name. But then when I got my account back, I just said, screw you. And I changed it back to Japanese again. So.
So Squiggly, what do
I'm
you
still
think?
there.
Well, what's your opinion, Squiggly? I mean, you're like me, you're a liberty lover. What do you think? What's your opinion of Elon Musk deciding not to bring back Alex Jones?
I don't know that he's really made that decision yet, as he's, still just kind of, rolling out unbanning people. And I think he's just kind of, gauging the people that he's been unbanning and what the reactions to that is like, but before, he gets to that big, unforgivable sin, because, he would be, risking, like actually being deplatformed from like the Apple App Store. And so when it comes to that, it's just kind of like, if you get deplatformed from the Apple App Store, you're done. It's like you could say, well, we've got free speech here, but nobody can download your app anymore. So what's the point? So I think it's just kind of like, he could turn everybody back on at once, but it's been just kind of like a slow, rolling move out where I think he's still gauging, reaction to it.
Squigs, is there anything else that you think that the good people who are watching the show this morning should know before I let you go?
Get on Twitter. It's fun. Twitter is fun again.
It is fun.
Get on.
Again. It's very fun. That's and it's fun to talk to you, Squigs. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, by the way.
You as well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much. Did you like Squiggly Line Guy? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you this morning. I'll be reading your text messages when I go to commercial break, and we'll be back with more of the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Are you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho! Joining is a conservative herself, Gabby Hoffman, who's joining us. Good morning, Gabby. Thank you so much for coming on the Wake Up America show today, and welcome to the show.
Austin, it's so wonderful to be on with you. I'm happy to break down this subject, and thanks for thinking that I have a big brain to deconstruct this. So I'm honored to be on, and congrats on the initial success you've had here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gabby. Glad to have you here. Yeah, for those who are just tuning in, we got our YouTube partner status today. So thanks to all of our listeners for helping to make that happen. Gabby and I go way back when I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. She's a conservative activist, and I've known her for a number of years. And her and I have been having conversations sort of behind the scenes about this new movement within the Republican Party. They call themselves National Conservatives. I call them NatCons for short. And they really are sort of the ascendant in the Republican Party, as the old neoconservatives have been pushed to the side and become what we call never Trumpers. National conservatism has risen to the forefront, and people are really excited about it. They're having conferences. Gabby, who are these people, and what would you say that they believe?
National conservatism is an interesting coalition that is starting to build. I would largely say that even though they're very loud on Twitter, they have yet to really take hold in electoral politics. But philosophically, they are starting to somewhat shape the conversation. But if some of your listeners are familiar with kind of the infighting or kind of the tussles in the conservative movement, we're not seeing something relatively new. We've seen this kind of infighting and battle between different factions for many, many years. This predated Reagan's time. This was happening after Reagan, and now this is happening post-Trump, if you can argue that. And so there's this kind of battle between, should we continue with the conservative fusionism that has worked to bring together libertarians, traditional conservatives, free market people, and people who support or who are against anti-communism? Or do we create something brand new because it's the failures of market conservatism or free enterprise that have brought about the problems, that have brought about the establishment? And so there's this kind of philosophical battle playing out. But a lot of people have kind of compared national conservatives, who tend to be economically progressive and socially conservative, which is kind of a minority faction that wasn't really influencing much. They were kind of loud. A lot of people have compared some strains of populism as national conservatism is built to kind of Pat Buchanan's thinking from the 90s, from the 80s and such. But it's an interesting kind of faction that is playing out. And even among populists, there is even some great disagreement. So I'm not sure how ascendant they really are. They certainly captivate a lot of people online, but it remains to be seen how influential they're going to be in the real world, because Twitter is not real life.
Yeah, that is true. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, the Wake Up America show is real life. I'm speaking to Gabby Hoffman live on camera. We're glad to have her here. We're talking about the new national conservative movement in the Republican Party, how influential it may be. Now, you could say that, people speaking at their conferences, Ron DeSantis and many other figures who are ascended on the right, might be a sign of strength. And That's happening in the real world. There are conferences that are happening in the real world, Gabby. But I mean, would you say that Ron DeSantis kind of like throwing in Donald Trump, and others, who they kind of see as their avatar? Wouldn't you say that that would be a sign of a movement that's on the rise?
Some in media have said that his participation in the most recent NatCon conference in Miami could signal that he is sympathetic to tenets of national conservatism, or maybe he has some friends of the organization and he did a favor for them and scratch my back, scratch your back. I'm not sure what to make of it, because if you look at how he's governed, I wouldn't say he's a national conservative, so to speak. He has certainly used the tools of government, state government, to kind of clamp down on Disney's tax kind of advantages that they enjoyed there. But if you look, I would say even beyond that, a lot of people see him as, I would say, a traditional conservative, just someone who uses his muscle a bit more. So I'm not sure if you can say he's exactly a national conservative. I haven't heard Ron DeSantis, for example, say that free market is producing these excesses, it's destroying the family. He's actually lowered taxes even beyond what Republicans have done historically in Florida. And I think you had tweeted this, that people aren't simply moving to Florida because he's fought Disney. And it's really interesting what's happening with Disney, another conversation for another time, because there's a leadership crisis there. But people were not moving to Florida. Like, people I know, personally speaking, anecdotally speaking, who moved to Florida didn't say, well, I liked that DeSantis took on Disney, so I'm uprooting myself from New York or these other states, and I'm moving down south to Florida. Most people were seeking out Florida because it was not very restrictive with respect to COVID. They also were looking for a better tax system. They were very largely drawn to the no state income tax and lower tax culture overall that is often found in Florida. So I think that's what largely drew people there. So again, I think people can appear at conferences. He could give a nod or a wink to some of their stuff. I mean, his participation does give them legitimacy. That's certainly something to be argued. But is he truly emblematic of their movement? That remains to be seen, because I don't see him being anti-free markets. He's against cronyism. And I think something that NatCons unfortunately do is conflate true, pure, unadulterated free markets with cronyism. I don't see any conservative or even libertarian say we support the CCP. I think a lot of people have questioned whether or not we should engage with China in the future, and if decoupling can be seen as a free market kind of idea. And I think it can, because we shouldn't be necessarily giving license to in any state like that. And I think a lot of free marketeers believe that we perhaps contributed to their rise, but that doesn't mean you support tariffs or you support, undermining or undercutting the free market system. But it's just so interesting that in his actions, for instance, in DeSantis's actions, I don't really see populism, so to speak. Going against wokeism is also very popular among traditional conservatives and libertarians, as long as you're not, using, let's say, the hand of big government to do so. But fighting against the culture through statements and through exposing things is kind of a free market thing. It's an individualistic thing. He's not really using the government to say, we're going to undermine this through the purse of government. It's the wokesters exposing themselves in social media being helpful tools to give people access to their musings. So I think a lot of this can happen without government necessarily shaping and dictating. And it's also people voting in better representatives in Florida, for instance, who are combating wokeism even on their own accord. So to his involvement can be understood as maybe giving license to them, but I wouldn't categorize him as that, because he was part of the Freedom Caucus. He was for free markets as a member of Congress. So I don't really think it's a huge departure what he's doing. So it remains to be seen if realignment really is happening and if it's being translated through Governor DeSantis or others like him.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm speaking to Gabby Hoffman. We're talking about the national conservative movement in the Republican Party, about zombie Reaganism, fusionism, and all of the ideas that are at issue within the current right-wing movement. If you have a question, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Now, Gabby, I know you consider yourself a conservative, right? And I would think of you more as a traditional type of a conservative from a philosophical perspective, small c conservative. And I'm more of a small L libertarian, traditional, libertarian, right? A classical liberal, if you will. But one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed as well, is that these national conservatives see libertarians as a much greater enemy than actual communists. And when I post that on Twitter, and I tweet that explicitly, people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" They say that this, people don't believe me when I'm saying this one, and I mean, I can provide documentation to show, whether or not we're talking about Tucker Carlson embracing the economic platform of Elizabeth Warren, or whether or not we're talking about national conservative writers at the New Compact, embracing actual Chinese versions of communism because they claim it's pro-family, right? People still don't seem to believe it. But why do you think that national conservatives find libertarianism to be a bigger enemy or threat than they do Chinese communists?
I think it's largely a scapegoat. To blame someone for their own failures, they need to project their sins onto others. And I've learned over the years, I used to probably have very negative views of libertarians until I actually met some that were in the movement, that crossed paths with me. We fought battles. We worked together at Leadership Institute, or we worked together even beyond my time at Leadership Institute. And I think misunderstanding what libertarians are is a fault for them. And unfortunately, I see a lot of these national conservatives being former, and there's nothing wrong with having a political awakening, by no means, but a lot of them are former Bernie Sanders supporters. I've also seen some of these people from the Compact and other outlets praise FDR-style government. And FDR-style government continued the recession following the Great Depression, or rather, the Great Depression. It prolonged it by 7 to 8 years. He enhanced the size and scope of government. He created all these alphabet departments, and he is largely attributed to the public sector unions. He gave license to collective bargaining and so many other facets. We have a very empowered teachers union stemming from FDR policies and also emboldened by JFK, who allowed for collective bargaining through executive action, and then the Great Society afterwards. So FDR laid the groundwork for a lot of this wokester policy. So ideologically, it makes no sense to, hate libertarians more than you would FDR style politics. But it's super easy to blame libertarians for stuff. And I used to probably hold libertarians accountable. I think it was during the Cuccinelli election in Virginia. I was like, oh my gosh, it was these darn libertarians ruining it for conservatives. But I had seen the statistics afterwards that in exit polling, that it wasn't actually, the libertarian was kind of taking away both votes from both the Democrat and the Republican. And I understand it's easy to scapegoat Republicans for third-party candidates, but there are times where there are no third-party candidates and Republicans may lose, even by a slim margin, because some people see Democratic candidates more favorable, which is bizarre to me. But some people just vote like that. And I think they blame libertarians for the social ills, but a lot also can be faulted with the so-called, I wouldn't say they're all social conservatives, because social conservatives don't want the government to enact family policy. People see what happens when government becomes parental, and when it kind of enacts these parental...
Pause. I got to push back on that one. That has not been my experience with social conservatives, Gabby. Most social conservatives that I know think that it is the role of government to enforce their narrow worldviews. To me, a social conservative is someone who thinks that the government needs to get in bed with religion and needs to enforce their moral values at the point of a gun. We're having this discussion right now with the Respect for Marriage Act and the question of gay marriage. And from what I can see and understand, conservatives believe that gay marriage should be outlawed, and they're openly advocating for that. I mean, I guess you could say Twitter is not real life, but I mean, that's where many prominent conservatives go out there. If you're a social conservative and you don't think that the government should be outlawing what you find to be immoral, then you're really just a libertarian who has social conservative views.
I wouldn't call myself a libertarian, a social libertarian. I think also there's a debate among conservatives, two traditional ones. It's not because we agree with the David Frenches of the world, or we want, let's say, to give concessions to libertines. I think a lot of traditional conservatives, even among social conservatives, you find debates and divisions. But I think most of us believe that the role of government should be limited. I think you've even seen a libertarian argument to say government should get out of marriage entirely. I've somewhat held that view myself, irrespective of some of the debates that are happening in Congress. But I think people remember, social conservatives remember too, largely thanks to fusionism, that when government acts as a parent, there are strings attached to that. And national conservatives have said, well, in order to encourage more family creation, we have to incentivize people getting married. It is hard enough to incentivize young men today to want to get married. They don't want to do it when they can freely choose to do it because they're afraid of it. And so could you imagine the government saying, you have to, by decree, now get married and produce? That's going to make people not want to get married even more, given the cultural challenges to that. So I think conservatives are very skeptical. Most conservatives, minus some of the NatCon variety, are very skeptical of governmental force being used to enact our policies. And David Harsanyi went on Dana Lash's show and talked exactly about this. And Dana Lash, as you know, is a very stalwart conservative. And she was saying the left already offers people benefits and these kind of perks through the government. Republicans are not going to take that away from them by offering kind of pro-family platitudes. So she was even warning against encouraging government one-size-fits-all policy to impose our will onto the people, because the economic populism, social conservatism view is maybe only 11% of the electorate. It's a really small faction. And most people are not going to say, you know what, I support lefty economics, but I'm going to go to social conservatism. That's not the case.
But isn't that fascinating, though, Gabby, that you have all of these leftists who have brought their economic views with them into the Republican Party, but they're fiscally socialist and they're socially conservative, which, you know, really is the old FDR style of Democrats. I mean, my grandparents, for example, who lived through the Great Depression, I mean, everybody was an FDR fan. It was World War II, so the United States was all they were all very much into Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and they all believed the propaganda because there were only 12 newspapers and 4 radio stations that they could hear at the time. But we now see that national conservatism really is it's like basically Bernie Sanders, but it goes to church on Sunday, as I like to say. But that absolutely drives them bonkers when I describe that. But do you think I'm being uncharitable?
I think that's a pretty reasonable take on it, because they, like I said, there was one NatCon conference, I think earlier in the fall, and some of the people who profess to be Catholics were saying FDR style progressivism is acceptable. It could bring back Catholicism. And I come from a Catholic family, and most of my Catholic family members do not like FDR style politics and governmental style. They shrug against that because it discouraged that type of activity, and it heavily subsidized religion and kind of distorted it to a sense too. And people look back on the FDR years, minus him leading us through World War II. People certainly can give him that concession. The only policy aside from that was he actually put kind of true conservation at the model, creating wildlife agencies. That was one of the few policies I liked of his. But he enacted a lot of fiscal harm and rose taxes, and he, like I said, piloted a lot of these big government social programs that have really hurt a lot of different people, many demographics, many different individuals. And the reason why we have societal ills and kind of this distortion of different things today is because of FDR policies. We see
not just FDR, but also his cousin Teddy Roosevelt. So progressivism is not just a fixture of the left. There is a right-wing progressivism as well, and that's very much the legacy that people like Josh Hawley, Josh Hammer, what's with these Joshes, and many other national conservatives, proudly tout. Is they ride the coattails of Teddy Roosevelt, and they say it's because they like him, his personality, but in reality, it's his fiscal policies that they aim to champion. If you really want to trigger people, and I'm here from the state of Missouri, tell them the fact that Josh Hawley voted for more government spending than Bernie Sanders, if you really want to blow their minds. I've got to go. Gabby, this was an awesome discussion and conversation. You should definitely become a regular on the show. We'd love to have you back every once in a while.
I should talk about freelancing with your audience, because there's a governmental rule being handed down. I know Missourians would probably be very fascinated, and those outside of Missouri. So I would love to come back on and chat about that when that rule is handed down.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Diddy's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Dee Dee made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Dee Dee really likes it. Dee Dee said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway.
I need help.
You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Now this morning to discuss the nascent movement in the Republican Party. National conservatism is a conservative herself, Gabby Hoffman, who's joining us. Good morning, Gabby. Thank you so much for coming on the Wake Up America show today, and welcome to the show.
Austin, it's so wonderful to be on with you. I'm happy to break down this subject, and thanks for thinking that I have a big brain to
My
deconstruct
name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Dee Dee's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice.
Here I am. What the hell's going on there, Austin? I have no clue. Everything was messing up there. Sorry about that one. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. I'm sorry that interview went so long. That means that we don't really have a lot of time to talk. I was going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of new movies that I'm interested in potentially seeing. James Cameron's Avatar 2. I haven't even watched part 1, but part 2 apparently is going to cost him $2 billion to make. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And apparently they use video effects to make Indiana Jones look 30 years younger. And if you didn't see the last Indiana Jones, count yourself lucky. It was so terrible. I wish I hadn't seen it. So now I just wonder if I should just not see the new Indiana Jones. Sadly, we don't have time to talk about that, unfortunately. But I just want to say thanks very much. Yeah, if you think you're having a stroke, broke the show. Anyways, don't forget that I do have an afternoon show at 2 p.m. today. The Austin Peterson Show on the Real Talk Radio Network. You don't want to miss that because on the Real Talk Radio Network, you get to hear me for another hour. So download the app on iPhone or Android. That's a great place to text me while the show is going on. And of course, don't forget to visit the AP for Liberty shop website. Get your products in before Christmas, because tell you what, Thanksgiving's this weekend. That means that's it. It's time. You got to get your Christmas presents going so they can get there in time. Anyways, I'm feeling better. It seems like my stomach is starting to settle down. The food poisoning is starting to go away. Appreciate you very much. Hey, my pants look like Austin's shirt. Okay, that must be nice. I'm not wearing pants. We'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget tonight. See you at 2 p.m. And then tomorrow morning for the Wake Up America show, last one of the week before I do the best ofs on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.